So we're going to go ahead and kick off the rest of this afternoon. We're going to start with Mr. George Williams again with Reliability Engineering. Come on up, George. Everybody give him a round of applause.
Thank you.
And I don't know about you, but I'm going to get this much smarter again, because every time I'm in a room with George, I get that much smarter.
Thank you. Thanks, Larry. So we're going to have to move quickly so that we stay on time. We're going to talk about understanding the reliability opportunity and what does that really mean. Is maintenance considered a cost center? It's just a necessary evil. There's no actual investment in maintenance. We're a reactive organization, but don't spend any money. You can't have the asset for maintenance, but make sure it stays up and running. Does that sound familiar? And then how many folks have initiatives they think will add value, but they're not good at communicating it to leadership and getting acceptance of that, and getting the investment money to invest in maintenance? We don't speak the same language. The maintenance manager oftentimes was a technician, and they got promoted to supervisor because they were really good at it. Not at supervising. They were really good at maintenance. They got promoted to supervisor and got almost no training in how to supervise a team. And so they figured that out. Remember the talent reliant piece? So they figured that out and got promoted. They became the maintenance manager. They know nothing about budgeting, nothing about what a return on investment is, nothing about what an internal rate of return is, nothing about net present worth. And they're asked to figure out how to not spend any money, but keep the plant running. So our presentation today really drives home a business understanding of how to relate the opportunity. So, how does maintenance provide value? First and foremost, it's a convenience. We make life easier. When a line is having trouble and jams and things aren't running right and things are not centerlined properly, what does the operation look like? It looks like a bunch of people running around with like chickens with their heads cut off trying to make it work, right? How stressful is that for the operator? When the line is running smoothly, how is the operator reacting? If the line is down and you're under pressure to get it back up and running, are you more or less likely to be injured? You are 4 times more likely to be injured during breakdown maintenance than a PM because you feel under pressure. So maintenance provides quality of life. They also provide process improvement capabilities. They just don't know it usually. When the operation can't figure out how to operate the line, who do they call? They call maintenance, and maintenance comes and they make adjustments. It's usually because incoming raw material is out of specification. But maintenance doesn't know that either. They just know they have to get this product to run, and so they make adjustments. And then what happens when the next batch of raw material comes in that's in spec? The line doesn't run because we've changed it, and they call maintenance. And maintenance is the problem. I have to keep calling maintenance. So maintenance is a problem. Maintenance is not the problem. When we do assessments of manufacturing losses, maintenance usually accounts for about 7% of downtime. So while you're getting yelled at for the 2-hour downtime event, they're running the machine slower to mask problems. And they lose all those units. And it jams every 5 minutes. And they lose all those units. But no one ever counts that. It doesn't add up to 2 hours. So maintenance gets yelled at. We have to learn how to speak their language and argue back, or at least make our case and point. And maintenance can help operations with standards because you're the one that comes out and fixes the problem, whether it's a component that failed or not. You have the expertise to run the line. So let's take a look. Also financial, we can free up cash flows from a maintenance perspective. We'll talk all about that in a little bit. We went over this graphic this morning, and it looks like everybody here showed up, so I don't have to go through it in significant detail, right? At the end of this, the reality is this. The maintenance organization's function is to be invisible. Your function is to have as minimal impact on your operation as possible, which means try to do PMs while the line is running. That's not always possible, but it's possible in many cases. It's not possible with wear component replacement, but you can do inspections while the line runs. You can predict events and use technology to understand which components are going to fail, and then work with operations when the best time to replace the component is, and have a minimal impact to the operation. Your role is to have as minimal impact to the operation as possible at all times. How come? Well, uptime means profit. If I'm running, I'm making widgets or producing a service. If I'm not running, that's not happening. Every minute we're not running costs money. Every minute we're running, hopefully we're making money. So we'd rather make money than cost money. So let's go through some stuff here. Maintenance can be a profit center because we can capture cost savings. We can capture things that are cost avoidances. We can actually have profit gains, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit, and we can eliminate defects from happening. One of the hardest things about my job is to get maintenance to stop touching stuff. It's with good intentions because they want to get the line running, but the operation doesn't realize the impact of buying cheaper corrugate or not inspecting a roll of film that has an indicator on it and now I can't index properly. And if you want to save penny on a stack of cardboard, what does the manufacturer do? They cut it in a higher stack, which means I'm further out of specification at the bottom of the stack. And so when it's running at the line, I get jams because I don't inspect it. I send the bad stuff right to the line, and I let operations deal with it. And when we have jams, they call maintenance. This is a problem that maintenance can be the driving force to fix. Let's talk a little bit about what cost savings and cost avoidance are. There's a difference between cost savings and cost avoidance. A cost savings should be able to come right out of your budget. The next time they say, I want to do a capital project that's going to reduce 2 headcount, make sure they take it out. Because what happens? They go, oh, we're going to put in this automation equipment, it'll relieve 2 operators, and then they don't get rid of the operators. They add a piece of equipment that maintenance now has to maintain, but they didn't shift the headcount. They just have that operator go do something else. A cost savings is something that can come out of your budget. If it can't come out of your budget, it's not a cost savings. A cost avoidance is something you would have spent if you did not take the action. So if you use a predictive technology and that predictive technology says, hey, this bearing is going to fail, the cost savings is not the cost of replacing the bearing. It's what would have happened and what would be the cost if you didn't know it ahead of time and could properly plan and schedule it. Let's say you're at a plant that, I don't know, does sanitation on the weekends and maintenance is allowed in there on Saturday mornings. If I can plan that replacement on Saturday morning, I had no impact to the operation. If it goes down while I'm operating and it takes me 2 hours to fix, the cost avoidance is 2 hours worth of lost product. So in order to sell the value of maintenance, first, understand how important maintenance is. If you're not sure, go to www.yourcompanynamehere.com/aboutus and read it. It will tell you what the organization's objectives are. What do you normally have? We've got an objective to service, we need money, we gotta make money. So it's either to shareholders or profitability, right? We have a commitment to the environment. We have a commitment to the community. We've got a commitment to safety. You might have a commitment to your employees, and you got one for quality. Whether it's customer service or quality outright, either way. Everyone has the same similar objectives, right? Maintenance has an impact of whether or not you make money. Does maintenance have an impact whether or not you have a safety record that's correct, that's good? Maintenance have a direct impact on product quality. Maintenance have a direct impact on the environment. Awesome, great. Name one other group in your company that hits them all. Maintenance and operation are king. Everyone else is unnecessary. Let me explain what I mean by that. When we go to cost of goods sold includes direct labor. Direct labor is stuff that touches the product. They're things that your customer is willing to pay for. Other costs that are employees are called overhead. And overhead, because finance is slick, doesn't count in cost of goods sold. It comes off the contribution margin from a finance perspective. They hide it. That's why they don't try to cut their own head to reduce cost of goods sold, because it never will. You don't know that. Not usually. It counts towards contribution margin. So there's no savings in their mind to cut the office staff. And that's why when you're going, why are they cutting maintenance and operations people? Why aren't they cutting the 35 people I've got in the office? Well, because you won't see it in cost of goods sold. So we've got to learn how to speak that language in order to be able to convey that we're not silly. And as a maintenance organization, since you touch all of those entities, those folks should be your best friend. Go to finance and find out what their goals are and figure out how you can help support their goals. And explain to them that if you're finding a failure ahead of time, does anybody have to present their ideas? So here's how you do this, right? I got finance in the room. And I say, hey, finance, if we invest in predictive technologies, I'll know ahead of time about a failure, and I give them all the technical stuff about vibration. Am I getting support? No. Great. Hey, finance, should I pay $3,000 for a failure or $500 for a failure? Which one do you want? I want $500. Duh. Okay, great. If we do this, I don't know ahead of time, and I have ancillary damage, and it costs me money that you didn't budget. But if I do this, it costs less. Which one should I do? So you get them to nod their head up and down. It's contagious. It gets contagious. It's like I got two bobbleheads on the table, and they just go like this. And when you get them to nod their head up and down, they can't stop. You've kind of backed them in a corner. So now you ask for what you need the investment for in order to be able to achieve that. They basically have to say they lied in order to not approve it. So organizations should be investing in reliability. Whether you're a batch operation or in public service or in manufacturing, it's an investment in reliability. It's part of the cost to do business. So let's understand some terminology. This is the really boring part of the presentation. The first thing we have to understand is what a return on investment is. And a basic return on investment says, well, if I spend 10 grand and I get 5 grand back in 12 months, I have a 2-year return on investment. Make sense? That's not how finance always works. And you might not be getting approval because you think that's right. But finance uses other terms and other methods to do math. One of those is net present value. When I said that we spent 10 and then we made 5 and made 5, the second 5 isn't the same. Because the value of $1 is different in year 2. And so the investment is less. The other thing that we have to understand is the weighted average cost of capital. To give you the money to invest, they have to borrow it. And that has an interest rate. So you have to be able to beat that as well. The other piece is the internal rate of return. The internal rate of return is, well, if they don't give you the dollar, but they do something else with it, what can they expect back as a rate of return? But understand what internal rate of return is and whether or not you use simple ROIs inside the company or whether or not they use other means for their math in the finance side. Sit down with finance and ask them. Otherwise, you may be presenting something that after you're done presenting, finance goes, yeah, that's not how that works. And you're blown out of the water even if you had the ROI. If the company has a weighted average cost of capital of 15%, we're looking at a project that's 10 grand and the expected return is 4,000 a year, simple ROI says that's easy, 3 years. But if you look at the net present value, you actually lost money in 3 years based on the weighted average cost of capital. And so it wouldn't be cost justified. So understanding how finance determines return on investment will make a difference in how you're presenting the numbers. Unless you're in energy. Somehow, like energy projects save more than we actually spend in energy. If you're in a non-production environment, understand risk. The other thing leadership doesn't like to hear is risk. And there are websites and places you can go to understand risk. This one deals with safety. And so if we go to the Labor Board, the U.S. National Labor Board, you can look at what the average cost of a safety incident is. And they publish this every year. So if what you're going to do improves the potential for safety, this is a soft savings or a cost avoidance, but this is the risk you're trying to mitigate. That risk can occur in many other places beyond just safety. Quality, whether, if you're in pharma, then you can have CAPAs and 483s and notice of violation, all kinds of stuff. On the environmental side, you got notice of violations. They all have average costs. And you can use those to mitigate, to understand risk. On the financial metric side, these are just terminologies you should be aware of. Investors want to see that a company is generating earnings from their investments. So a return on equity is how well we manage that. It's net income divided by shareholder equity. How much is invested in the company versus what does it make? Return on assets shows how well we manage profit down to the asset level. It's our income divided by the value of all of our assets. Return on investment capital, this is net income divided by total capital. Some better ones, at least from a manufacturing perspective. Cost of goods sold refers to all direct costs. That's direct labor, anyone that physically touches the product or supervises the people touching the product. Direct materials are all the raw materials, packaging materials, everything that goes into whatever it is you ship out the door. Cost to produce is slightly different. It's cost of goods sold plus ancillary costs like shipping. Fixed costs. A fixed cost is anything that does not change with volume. The lease of the building doesn't change whether I produce 10 million units or 1 million units. That's called a fixed cost. A variable cost is anything that does change with the volume I produce. So I have a bucket of money over here. If I have $10 that I spent to produce 10 units, I'm spending $1 per unit. If I can improve my operation and produce 20 units, if fixed costs, I still only spent 10. Direct labor, I still only spent 10. I didn't have to hire more operators. I ran better. So my cost of goods sold drops, right? My variable costs go up a little, so it's not 50 cents, maybe it's 55 cents. But all my fixed costs stayed the same. My direct labor stayed the same. And this is a dramatic difference to cutting costs. If I save a penny on the corrugate, that's 1 penny over millions of units, great. Yay, $100,000. If I can produce 1 million more units and take the same money and now divide it over another million, I save significantly more money. Contribution margin is the cost to produce. This is whatever's left. So money's left after cost to produce. So if we sell it for $2 and our cost to produce is $1, our contribution margin is $1. That doesn't mean that's profit because I have to pay for the overhead before I make profit. Because if you sell it for $2 and it costs you $1 to make, everyone in the plant thinks, well, I made 10 million units last year, I made $10 million. But you didn't, because all the overhead costs still have to come out. It's also why they don't go, we've got to drop our contribution margin. They don't say that. They say we have to drop cost of goods sold. On the business side, even at the shop floor, they should understand this. Folks should know what the design rate of the equipment is versus what it actually is producing. Because your OEE metrics today are based on somebody's arbitrary target and not the design rate of the equipment in most cases. Which means we think we're good. Yay, we hit our target. But if your target's 20% below the design rate of the equipment, you still have room to get better. Who's going to try to get better if the metric's green? We should understand how we positively and negatively impact the business. And this is both maintenance, it's all groups. Maintenance, procurement, quality, safety, they should all understand how they impact profitability of the business. 2 responsibilities of organization, optimal utilization of the capacity that's installed and doing it as efficiently as possible. That's not the same as cut costs. You have to be effective first. Any of the groups have like continuous improvement teams? They got CI teams or Lean Six Sigma teams or anything like that. Do they focus on effectiveness or trying to cut things and efficiency? They focus on efficiency, right? I can do the wrong thing better. You're laughing, but that's what's trying to happen. If I'm not effective, but I try to become efficient, I can succeed. At least in being efficient at the wrong thing. So it's more important to be effective than it is efficient. Effective means money. We have to focus on OEE and TEEP. Total effective equipment performance is how you perform versus calendar time. So 24/7, 365 minus all of your operational outages, maintenance outages, anything you plan for. It really is a metric of whether or not you're utilizing your assets. If I bought a whole plant and built the whole plant, and I only run 1 shift a day to meet demand, should I build another plant? I should add a shift, because I'm not utilizing the assets. And then OEE looks at how well I'm managing the asset while it's running. Here's how this works. TEEP, total effective equipment performance, is calendar time minus all of your planned outages. I don't have demand, I need operation outages, I have changeovers, I have an engineering outage, I have to take it down for maintenance, comes off the top. That leaves you with a maximum capability from an OEE perspective. Inside OEE, you have the availability bucket. This is the one maintenance gets blamed for. You own it, but you don't own it. You own a small piece of it. You own equipment breakdowns. But inside equipment, so breakdowns are anything 10 minutes or more and required a part. Usually 10 minutes or less, or 10 minutes or more, but did not require a part is a process failure. Operator didn't know how to operate the machine properly. Forgot to bring raw material out, bumped an e-stop. And then we have setup and adjustment losses. Setup and adjustment loss is anything that exceeds the design of the changeover. So if you have a 15-minute changeover and it takes 20, you had a 5-minute setup and adjustment loss. Performance losses are usually the biggest things we see in the plant. They are speed losses, meaning I've slowed the equipment down to mask other problems. And that other problem is usually minor stops, things that take less than 10 minutes. Anything that's less than 10 minutes. And these are typically not found or bucketed. Hopefully your SCADA system is seeing these. And then we have a quality bucket that's in-process defects, anything the line rejects. And startup defects. Somebody was in injection molding and blow molding and all that stuff. So anything that we're starting up to get the Paris in the right temperature, just blow pin tips, all that stuff is, we're going to regrind it. That's a startup defect. We can't just flip the switch and run good product in that scenario. So equipment effectiveness is the value that we derive from the production equipment. Our job is reliability of the plant. It's not just maintenance. If we have a great maintenance team and we're at 50% of our speed and have minor stops all day, are we successful? Not really. Our role is reliable operation of the plant. Reliability maximizes equipment effectiveness in 2 ways, both quantitatively and qualitatively. We can either increase the equipment's output and get rid of defects and stop problems. If we're not sure if this is an issue at our plant, just look up inside EAM the number of times you respond to an operational downtime but did not replace a part. Sometimes that's really a maintenance issue. We've got a frayed wire, we lost communication, that's a maintenance issue. Usually it's a poor operation, bad raw material, or some other issue. So we've got to communicate these things directly in 3 different directions. To the shop floor, it's about quality of life. What's in it for them? If they support the use of predictive maintenance technologies, how does their job get easier? You'll be less stressful. We'll know it ahead of time. We can plan it and get the parts in. We'll take away your recurring headaches. If you're not sure what the recurring headaches are, do you know how you find out? It's not a really complex thing about going inside EAM, although they should be there. At the plant management level, this is about letting them get some sleep at night. Do you like 3 a.m. phone calls? Do you like when we're over budget? And at the executive level, this is about the organizational objectives, the brand of the company, how you're going to meet the objectives. We have to speak differently based on who the audience is. So at the shop floor, educate, sell, remove obstacles so that you gain their respect. At the plant management level, it's about understanding the gaps and offering solutions. You're trying to make them look good. And at the C-suite level, it's about visioning and missions and values and the culture of the plant and meeting all the corporate objectives. And even then, you should understand who it is you're talking to. Are they a bean counter type person or are they a people type person? If they're very analytical and count pennies, I'm not going to them talking about the culture because they don't get it, like it's not in their wheelhouse. So you have to know who your audience is and how you're talking to them. The bottom line here is this: understand that the opportunity exists and then understand how to communicate it, whether it's financial, through the safety program, through quality. It's not just about identifying opportunity because you all know what the opportunities are today and you've probably known them for 10 years. But how do you close the gap is to get people to understand the risk involved and the finances involved in not closing the gap. And then communicate well to that audience. Make finance your best friend. Make somebody in safety your best friend. Safety gets money all the time. If they're supporting what you're trying to do because it helps their objectives, that's one other person in the room on your team. Don't be afraid to network and communicate. All right, awesome. I think we're out of time, but thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
George, thank you so much.